gentleman who we both
This, I
familiar
believe,
with.
the electric shock therapy, I think, was before 1982.
Well, obviously, because they used it in 1982. But it... Oh, when she had it, you mean? I see. Well, even worse then. Even worse then. But, so there's a good chance this, if she wasn't very mentally ill beforehand, through whatever means, there's a good chance that she was after it.
So back to Sheila. She continued with her secretarial course, and then she trained as a hairdresser. She did some modelling work with I think it's Lucy Clayton agency in Tokyo for a couple of months. She became pregnant again and married Colin this time at Chelmsford Register Office in May 1977. But then,
go on.
Yep.
Bit of information.
Yeah.
Wenzel worked at Chelmsford Market for a while. That was the dipping farm for the sheep and all that lot. I don't know a lot about it. I remember him telling stories saying you used to have to dip the sheep or something. Something about putting ink marks on them or something along those lines. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I remember him telling me he used to work down at Chelmsford Market. He married Colin at Chelmsford Market. Chelmsford.
Chelmsford Register Office in May 1977. But then Sheila miscarried in the 6th month of that pregnancy. The Bambers bought the couple a garden flat in Carlingford Road, Hampstead, to help Sheila recuperate.
So they made her give up her first child at 17.
I believe so. They made her have an abortion. Then with the same guy, I believe it was, she then got pregnant again, married the guy, and then miscarried this child.
And then Daddy goes, here's a house because I feel sorry that you've miscarried. But it was okay for him to murder their first child.
Kind of, yeah. That's the impression I get. Sheila then went on to suffer another miscarriage. And then eventually on the 22nd of June 1979, after 4 months of bed rest in hospital, she gave birth to twin boys, Nicholas and Daniel.
Yay.
So she did manage to go full term staying in hospital, and she gave birth to twin boys.
Okay.
Just before this, though, Colin apparently began an affair, and he left Sheila 5 months after the birth of those boys.
Oh, wow. So whatever she was going through, or they were both going through after essentially losing 2 children, had caused a divide.
I believe she was fairly young at this time as well. She wasn't particularly old. In her 20s, I believe, at the time. Like young 20s, because further on, Sheila became increasingly upset. And on one occasion, when Colin left her 21st birthday party with another woman, she required hospital treatment after breaking a window with her fist. I'm led to believe that after her 21st birthday was after she'd had the boys.
Okay.
And then the couple divorced in May 1982. So after the divorce, Neville bought Sheila a flat in, I think it's Moorehead's mansion, Maida Vale. And Colin helped raise the children from his home in nearby Kilburn.
So they had some living together.
They're not living together.
They've divorced.
But they had some kind of arrangement in place. They was both kind of taking care of the kids.
He's looking after the kids and banging this other woman, and she's at home being depressed and looking after the kids, taking care of Daddy's needs. Got it, right.
Possibly. Sheila decided to trace her birth mother, and the birth mother was living in Canada.
Who's living in where?
Canada.
That's not what you said.
Just say Canada.
Canada.
Yeah, I thought so. Canada. I don't know.
Birth mother was living in a colander.
Yeah. And they met at Heathrow Airport in 1982 for a brief reunion, but the relationship did not continue.
Oh, maybe not.
And around this time, Sheila became friends with a group of people who named her Bambi. This group of friends later told reporters that she was desperately insecure and often complaining about the poor relationship with her adoptive mother.
To be fair, she had called her the devil's child and made her have a abortion.
It definitely wasn't a good relationship. That, I think, is quite open there. The group did lots of partying, and they did drugs, and particularly cocaine, and fraternizations with older men.
Fraternizations?
Yeah, I know, I said it quite right.
No, it's a very big word for, getting your leg over.
And at this point, Sheila's modelling career was over. and she lived on welfare and took low-paying jobs, including one as a waitress for a week at School Dinners, a London restaurant in which dinners were served by young women in school uniform, stockings and suspenders. Bearing in mind she had 2 young twin boys and was trying to put food on the table.
I understand, and Cola City just did a big thing about sex workers, even to the point of sort of describing them as sex workers instead of like prostitutes or the other words that people use for them, and the reasons behind it. So, I'm all for this. This isn't the level that she was going into. Personally, I like uniforms, but that is the one uniform that doesn't do it for me. But yeah, I'm a uniform fan. If she was going in there as a maid or a nurse or whatever, I'd go and have a coffee in there.
Bearing in mind, in that sense, she was a model previously. She wanted to model clothes. She wasn't afraid to show her body and she was comfortable in her body. She was confident in it. If you're going to go into modelling, you've got to be comfortable in your own body.
Regardless of whether you're going to go into modelling or not, you should be comfortable with your own body.
Yeah. So it obviously
I'm fat and I'm happy.
She also did cleaning jobs, and apparently there was an episode of nude photography which she regretted much later.
So did Jonathon. Not the nude photography, the cleaning jobs.
I thought it was the nude photography. Maybe he didn't tell you about that.
Huh.
Sheila's mental health declined with episodes of banging her head against walls.
Oof.
In 1983, her family doctor referred her to Hugh Ferguson. So that's the psychiatrist who had treated June Ferguson. Who treated June.
Yeah, her mother.
And then, that's her adoptive mother.
Yes.
And then Ferguson had said that Sheila was in an agitated state, paranoid and psychotic, when she was admitted to St Andrew's Hospital, a private psychiatric facility, where Ferguson diagnosed a schizoaffective disorder. After Sheila was discharged in September 1983, this Ferguson continued to see Sheila as an outpatient and concluded that his first diagnosis had been mistaken, and that Ferguson now believed that she had schizophrenia and she was being treated with
trifluperazine, an antipsychotic, during
this time of Sheila's stay at St Andrews, and her sons Daniel and Nicholas, who would have been about 3 or 4 years old at the time, was placed into foster care briefly.
Okay, that's really important. However, why can I pronounce trifluperazine and not read the way you've spelt this?
THIS is how you spell this.
Thanks.
The other one has lots more letters in it.
It does. So, firstly, respect to this doctor. I don't think I only know a handful of doctors, but I don't think I know one of that handful that would be, I ballsed up, I was wrong.
Openly say,
I've changed my opinion. It was this, but it's either morphed into this, or my initial assessment was incorrect, and I've analysed the situation a bit more, and
maybe there was more to it. Maybe somebody else got involved. I don't know.
So respect to the doctor because he's trying to do his bit. But
and even though obviously the twin boys did have their dad, they was placed into foster care briefly during this time.
Which you would like to say begs the question, from my experience, if he's got a woman there and he's looked after the kids previously, she must be on a pretty severe mental decline, because I wasn't put in the care. 20 people that should have been put in the care weren't put in the care, and that was, I was born in 1982. And yet at this time, they were put into care. So the adoptive mothers of these guys' parents, so essentially the children's grandparents, weren't good enough to look after them. The mother...
Whether they was not good enough or whether they chose not to, I don't know.
Yeah. The mother, which makes it even worse, as a family dynamic, is even worse. You would think, okay, my parents don't count, let's be honest. One's dead, the other's an individual, yeah? So yours would be there straight away, 100%. They'd be like, you need a support, we're here. You need us to look after them, we're here. You need us to take them for a year, we're here. No matter what, I know that there is in-laws,
That you've
and
got
I
a
know
support
that
network
your
around you, that
parents,
you've got someone
regardless
to
of,
rely on.
yeah, they would be there. So this, as a family dynamic, is just wrong anyway. But her mental state must have been that bad. How bad would it have had to been late 70s, early 80s for them to turn around and say, yeah, we're going to take the kids into care,
Bearing in
considering what I
mind,
went through and they didn't do jack.
This is the same doctor that saw her mother, June, and gave her electroshock therapy.
So he knows the mother's
So
not
we
up.
know that the mental health of the mother may not be the greatest.
Yeah, okay.
So this Dr. Ferguson wrote that Sheila believed that the devil had given her power to project evil onto others, and that she could make her sons have sex and cause violence with her.
Whoa. So not just I can make my sons go out and abuse people, or I can make my sons, telepathy, control of telepathy, or even casting possession, if you like.
Yeah, it's
In this case, it's with her.
Yeah.
It's not.
This is what this is what I've found online.
It's not I have the mental capacity to be able to control somebody to abuse somebody else. It's I have the mental capacity. She could make her sons have sex and cause violence with her. So anything that they did that was negative, she believed was her fault.
Then she called them the devil's children,
which is passed down from her mother, calling her the devil's child.
Phrase that June used for Sheila. She said she believed she was capable of murdering them or getting them to kill others. She spoke about suicide, although the court heard that Ferguson did not regard her as a suicidal risk, basically.
Okay, so maybe she spoke about suicide, but maybe she spoke about it in context, and it was not in the context of I'm going to kill myself. It was in the context of I've considered it, but it is not something that is on my mind or something like that.
Sheila was readmitted to St Andrews in March 1985, 5 months before the Whitehouse farm murders took place. After a psychotic episode in which she believed herself to be in direct communication with God, and that certain people, including her boyfriend at the time, were trying to hurt or kill her.
Okay, so that's the paranoia initially.
Mm-hmm.
Her boyfriend were trying to hurt or kill her. This paranoid schizophrenic, I'm just going to say his name, Dean. He's never going to listen to this. No one's ever going to care. And that's his name. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm not even sure he's still alive. And he used to be so concerned that people were looking through the windows. He was so concerned people were watching him. He used to close the curtains as soon as he come in. And he'd sit there wringing his hands over and over again. It's real. For them, it's 110% real. I mean, the scariest thing...
Everybody goes through different experiences with it.
The scariest thing about it is I read a quote one time. It said something along the lines of, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean nobody is following you. And I'm like, cheers. That's not going to help him. I ain't gonna tell him that. But it's also true. Probably especially in this case when you come to think of it. But this is, it's horrible.
She was discharged after 4 weeks, and she received monthly injections of, is it?
I believe that is halopendol.
I don't know.
I'm not sure what it is.
It's an antipsychotic drug.
Okay.
And it has a
sedative effect. So in my mind, it's a tranquilizer, and it's probably got some sort of happy pill in it as well. Possibly. So it's an antidepressant and a tranquilizer in my mind. She was
quite fully on track. She was having these injections monthly.
But I'm not a doctor, so I don't
really know too much about them.
Okay.
From this point, her twin sons lived all or most of their time with their father, Colin, in Kilburn.
But a minute ago, you said they were fostered out.
So when she came out of the hospital the first time before that last time, they came back out of foster care. And then, obviously, in between this time, they've obviously gone to live with the father.
Right, okay. So basically...
It's quite vague online with the ins and outs.
No, it's not. That makes perfect sense to me. She wasn't of sound mind. They've taken the kids off her. They've put them in care. However, when she's come out, she said to him, I want the kids back, blah, 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 blah. The kids have come back, but it's on the condition that he gets
Yeah, I think they kind of lived with
majority
both,
of the
but
custody.
the majority of the time they're living with Colin.